Rafael,
Hello, my friend.
look,
Ciao.
I never met. This is the first time I meet you, but you probably, I gotta say, you're probably one of the nicest person I ever met already.
Oh,
Like
man.
right there, right off the bat,
Oh,
man. It's
thank
like
you so much.
this is not just because Brazil, Italy, which like is an eternal rivalry when it comes to football, but it's like
No, I absolutely love the culture, as I was telling you before, it's in my blood. I have a little
absolutely.
Italian in me.
That's awesome, man. Look, I'm gonna go through the 7 C's interview with you, and I'm gonna go from the first to the seventh question. Okay, let's go.
Perfect.
First
Let's
question:
go.
at the sea, when you are navigating solo, to become a creature of habit can help you with anxiety.
Mm.
For many years, David Lynch only had tomato, tuna, feta cheese, and olive for lunch, and a little piece of chicken and broccoli and soy sauce for dinner. Many years, every single day. This was his kingdom of habits. Not sure if it still is, but the point is that David Lynch craved habits for the creative process.
Mm.
In fact, he say habits is in the daily routine. And when there is some sort of order, then you are more free to create mentally. And by the way, there is an amazing YouTube video of David Lynch cooking quinoa. You gotta watch it.
Everything that guy does is amazing, right?
Are you a creature of habits? Do you leverage your daily routine to keep your creativity flow stable and improve it?
That's a great question. By the way, what a great diet. I love everything that he
It
eats.
is, right? And the man is very healthy. The man is very
It
healthy,
is,
I gotta say.
right? So I was thinking about it, and I am not, which is interesting because I'm a very anxious person, and I think having some sort of routine can, like David Lynch, helps you to fight it. But I was thinking here, I think habit is a futile attempt to predict fate.
That's
And that's why, like even like doing my work, like especially here in the US, everything needs to be rehearsed, like put in a box. And I really like to. I'm reading now the Rick Rubin book. I don't know, everybody's reading it now.
yeah, of course, Rick Rubin.
Such
Yeah.
I'm always like looking for the cues that the universe give it to me. Either when I'm talking to someone, I'm reading something. I try to let myself open to these things, and by doing that, I don't have a routine, like every time I start the day in a different way, or the way I see a problem, or the way I live, or even when I walk my dog, I never want to walk the same way. So yesterday I went, I'm always like trying to discover new paths,
Wow.
So, which is interesting because being an anxious person, I think would help me to have some kind of habits or methods, but I don't.
So you change breakfast all the time?
All the time.
Oh, wow. That's super.
The only thing that's constant is my coffee.
Your coffee is constant.
Yeah, the coffee is constant. I'm addicted.
I read recently that there are two major forces in life, in the universe: movement and vibration. Movement is like everything is in movement, right? Even if it looks still, it's still moving, right?
Absolutely.
Like, the table in front of me is moving right now, but it looks to me still. Now, the second force, which is more important, in vibration, meaning like the waves, right? So when people say you gotta get into the mindset, that means that you have to travel to a certain kind of vibration force. You have to get there. You have to position yourself there in that mindset. And as you go there, it's like going in a freeway. You're going to see things coming at you.
Absolutely.
Only once you get there. If you don't get there, if you don't force yourself to get into the mindset or wave, you're never going to, any goal, not gonna manifest into your life. I thought it was really interesting.
Absolutely. What you said is the definition of quantum physics. Like everything is moving here. This table is moving. Everything is moving. It's all atoms and protons and
Right.
electrons and protons. You know, like in the quantum realm, everything is moving. You know, we are all energy. And I really do believe in vibration and all these things.
Awesome. Second question. The ocean has many paths, not just geographically, but metaphorically. Each of these paths leads you to different places and different experiences. William Blake once said, "The road of excess leads to the patience of wisdom. You never know what is enough until you know what is more than enough." There is a tangible truth in this statement. The road of excess leads to the palace of wisdom.
Wow.
Have you reached your palace of wisdom yet?
Oh my God, what a beautiful question.
I know that this is not me, man. This is this is William Blake. This is not me. I mean, he get all the credits.
I don't think I'll ever be wise, but I think we can be wiser, right?
Right.
So like I was thinking on that question, and it's the first thing that came to my mind is an epiphany that I had, like it's back, you know. I left my home country. It's gonna be like 16 years ago, right? And when I left Brazil, I had never left the country before. I didn't have a passport. I didn't have any English. You know, I went to this country in the Persian Gulf. And
how old were you at the time when you left?
26.
26.
Yes, and, you know, like because I have this very simple upbringing. You know, I think I was in a plane a couple of times, if I was, right?
Right.
And so I always like by the nature of like going to a different country, like not knowing the language and that difficult to communicate. And again, thank God I'm an art director and I could communicate through my work.
Right.
And like coming here to the US and everything, I always have a chip on my shoulder, right? My accent, the way I talk, the way I am, right? And a few years back, I had this epiphany that my accent is not a bug, it's a feature, right? And it might sound like a trivial thing, but this is something that really changed my life at the core. When I accept myself the way I am and the way I talk, Absolutely. You know, because that was so revolutionary to me, to become who I am, and even with all the flaws. And I remember when I left Brazil, my dad said, Rafa, wherever you go, always bring with you your accent and your character. Best and that's all. And my dad always liked to say this. You know, another thing that, you know, one of those things that you only acknowledge how wise your dad was when you're in an older age, right? And that for me was like, it was overnight. I think, okay, this is not a bug. It's a feature.
And I'm sure that's your wife being American, because your wife is American, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and my wife is American too. So they had to deal with our accents.
Absolutely.
But they encourage us to keep the accent, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And this is who we are, you know, like, and it's part of our personalities, how we perceive the world. And, you know, and words have power. Language has power, right? So that for me was, I don't know if it was my palace of wisdom, but it was something that was an epiphany for me that really changed my life in a very good way. That
resonated with me tremendously. I mean, I have an accent, a thick accent, as you can tell. And like, you know, and I do believe that is like an asset that we should, as your dad, like marvelous say, like we should bring with us wherever we go and never lose it. Like, you know, never lose it, because it's what shaped us. Because I do believe, I'm a writer, you're an art director. So even in my writing, even when I write English, like my tempo, my cadence is not, it's not truly the one of a native English. So, and the beauty is you are bringing this cadence into like, you know, another language. And I think I always bring like, you know, as example, I remember like Samuel Beckett wrote, is like, you know, English, his native language was English, but he wrote Waiting for Godot in French.
Oh.
For this very reason. So like, you know, in fact, when they kept asking him, like, you know, is Godot Godot, like it's God. And he was like, how can it be? I wrote it in French. In French, you don't say God. So
Here you go.
yeah, so anyway, like, I think like it's very interesting to literally inject your accent into another language and see how it behaves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting? That's interesting for you, the writer as well. The other day I read this quote from Ibn Battuta. You know, Ibn Battuta, one of the most like famous Arabic travelers.
Yes.
And he said that travel leaves you speechless, then it turns you into a storyteller.
That's awesome.
I think that's so beautiful, right? Because that's it. That's what language do to you. You know, when you go to this different place, you live different cultures, and you become like.
You guys have like, Brazilian have a great tempo and a great like, great colors when like, phrasing and like, constructing like a paragraph. I mean, I grew up, of course, like Paulo Coelho, like, it's great.
Yeah.
It's so famous. You know what I mean? It's like in Italy, but there are so many other like, Latin American, like, writers that truly have that kind
Garcia
of.
Marquez, absolutely.
Me, Gabo is like, it's like, his nickname Gabo is like one of his, probably one of the best, like, Hundred of Solitude. It was like, with Macondo and like the fictional town. I really like it. It was everything to me, Gabo. And yeah, what a great, like, anyway. Okay, cool. Fair question. The deep ocean is eerily dark, but not silent. If you were to drop a microphone, you will be listening to three major sounds right down at the bottom of the ocean. The first one is called like the biological sounds and come from the animals. The second one is called the geological sounds made by the ocean floor. And the third one is the man-made type of sound made by the boats and everything that like, sail through the ocean. Now, I believe that every boat is an ocean. So if I were to drop a microphone, boom, down into your soul, what will be the three major sound I will be listening to?
What a great question. What a great metaphor. So I was thinking about this question, and the first thing that came to my mind, really, I was meditating about those questions, like the first one truly is gratitude. You want to hear a lot of gratitude within it. Especially as I was telling you, I come from a very simple upbringing. The reason that I'm here doing what we do, using our creativity to make a living, like to change culture, to work, interact with this. I've met so many amazing people. I've seen so many places. My life is so much richer, right? Absolutely. Because of this, I don't know, is the whole, I'm really interested about the debate, nurture versus nature. Are we born with this God-given gift, or this is something that comes to you and I don't know what it is or where does it come from? But I have a lot of gratitude, and I don't take what we do for granted. There's a lot of, I have a friend, she's a strategist. She told me something that's so funny the other day. She said, advertising is the only business that constantly writes its own obituary. I remember like 20 years ago when I started, more than 20 years ago, the art director looked at me and said, it's the worst time to join this business because these digital people are coming and gonna steal our lunch, And I think is the how can I say, is the definition of creativity to always ever changing, and I'm very grateful. That's the first sound you would hear within me is gratitude, right? The other one I would say is like optimism. Especially like, I love this idea of if you cannot change your situation, you can always change your perspective. And like growing up in a fucked up place like Brazil, with all this beauty and everything, Brazil is a hard place to be, with all this thing. If you don't have that optimism, you're gonna live a miserable life, right? Right. So I think that the second thing you're gonna hear within me is optimism. I have that. I always like to look at the bright side, even when things are dark, right? The third thing you would listen within me is like melancholy.
Melancholy, the saudade.
Because this is, I think, accompanying all creative beings, right? They say the hardest the light, the darkest the shadow. Right? If you have all this optimism in me, there is a counterbalance to it, right? A friend of mine, I don't know if you know Alma Harrell, the director.
No.
She did a Honey Boy. She created what's the thing she created?
Are you talking Honey
Beard.
Boy? Are you talking like Honey Boy with Shia LaBeouf?
Yes, she wrote it and she directed.
Oh, then I definitely like watched that movie twice. I didn't remember the
She's
name.
amazing. She did the Free the Beard, you know, that all
Oh,
agencies.
okay.
So she's a very close friend of mine. And one day she told me like a beautiful thing. She said, some creative people, usually we have this veil of life in front of our eyes. And for creative people, that veil is more transparent. So you can feel things more, you know, like, more livid way. And I do believe that creative people have that in them, you know, like that melancholy, that insatisfaction with where things are. And I think that balancing between the good and what makes you a more grounded person, right? So I would say that gratitude, optimism, and a little bit of melancholy.
That's interesting. You know, recently talking about bright, dark, are you familiar with the beta region paradox?
No.
The beta region paradox say that sometimes to find yourself in the worst situation is better than to find yourself in a better situation. So I explain to you, right? Let's say you left Brazil because you were so discontent with your surrounding. You were so discontent. The situation was so bad that you moved into action. You took action and you left.
Here you go.
If the situation was passable, was bad, but not that bad, you would have probably stayed and you would have probably left in this kind of limbo and comfortably numb. Absolutely. So paradoxically, to find yourself in a worse situation, eventually it's going to develop in a better outcome. So a worse situation is better than a better situation. And it's called the beta region paradox. And it's actually so true. It is so true.
I love it. Rick Rubin, in the book, he said, failure is what you need to get where you need to go.
Yes, exactly. Right? That's another version of the paradox. Good. For question, when it comes to crossing ocean, it seems to me that you truly master the art of crossing ocean. As you say, you left Brazil, you were 26, you went to the Middle East, then you went to US. So your being is soaked with different cultures, and your life has has been shaped by different events, and you've seen different horizon. So global is truly like something that applies to you. Now, if I were to ask you to pitch the concept of global to the most isolated tribe in the world, is called the Sentinelese, what would you do? How are you going to pitch global to them?
So that for me, I was thinking about that question as well. It might sound like a platitude. Well, it's like John Donne, the poet in the
of course, I know John Donne.
He said that no man is an island. We are all part of it. So and that for me is work in the Middle East and in Brazil is all about humanity. To be global is to be human. Right?
That is such a beautiful answer, man. And you touch upon one of the beauty with John Donne is he used to be a priest.
Yeah.
So John Donne was a priest, which you would expect a priest not to believe in this, instead came out with this amazing sentence, no man is an island, which is
I love that because so true. Can I tell a quick story?
Of course. So,
when I moved to Bahrain, right, back in 2006, beginning of 2007, and I remember, so I went to work in this agency, and it was kind of like a scam, there was a Brazilian creative director who brought me in, and within 3 months he resigned, and I found myself without speaking any English in the middle of this country, and I went to receive my first salary 3 months later. So the guy was, and I remember, look how interesting. That's why I love humans, right?
Right.
I needed to buy a car because it's so hot over there. It gets to 50 degrees Celsius in the summer. And the cheapest place to buy cars, you go to the middle of the desert. So the Bedouins, they put some tents and they sell used cars. They sell used cars. Right? I found out about it, and I went there to buy a car, right? And I found this guy, one of the Bedouins, this guy called Ali. So like, and for some reason, I became friends with him. You know, like even after buying the car, I ended up buying the car. I always went back there just to drink tea with him.
Wow, that's
in the desert, because he was such a nice guy, and it was so interesting to get to know about the culture and see like how much alike we are than anything. And look how one day I went there and I was quite distressed with the situation at work, not getting my salary. I was and he just picked up my mood and he said, Rafa, what's going on with you? I feel that you are a bit sad. And I told him the what was going on with me. He's like, that's not good. That's not how we treat people here. So like, he connected me with his cousin who was a lawyer. So like, he completely, and then long story short, so he helped me through that situation, and he didn't have to. And it shows like a guy, a Bedouin in the middle of the desert, was that brought that humanity and that help that I needed, you know, like, and that makes me think that it doesn't matter where you come from, where you look like. It's all about how we, and to answer your question, how to be global, how to be human, right? And I think there's a lot of good humans out there, you know, everywhere.
That's refreshing and optimistic. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's a great story, man.
It is, man. I have so many stories from that region, you know, it's beautiful.
Good. Look, in the sea lingo, flotsam, it's wreckage or cargo that remains afloat after a ship has sunk. And jetsam is a cargo or equipment thrown overboard from a ship in distress. The precise meanings are lost in the common phrase flotsam and jetsam, which describes useless or discarded objects. We all carry a load of objects. We are, as human beings, like natural born hoarders. What would you rather lose at the sea instead of keeping with you as you're sailing throughout like your career?
That's an interesting question, and one that I talk a lot with my therapist. So that one is that if I have to make an analogy, it's almost like I have to throw away my compass, which is my anxiety.
Yes.
You know, I'm such
I mean, I don't want to be a therapy here, but what do you think is the source of the anxiety? Is the control thing?
I don't know what it is, but this is something I have since I was a little kid, and I'm a very anxious person. And you know, like the being an anxious person is like you always worried about something, you know, always like trying to. It is a little bit of control and lack of, right?
Yes.
But, and again, there's an incredible book that, if I'm not butchering the name, is that what gets you here won't get you there, you know? And I don't know if you heard about this book. It's a very interesting one. It's all about like the traits that makes you successful are the same ones that is gonna be in the way of you advancing in life, right? Okay. So I feel that my anxiety was some sort of engine, because like for a creative person, like being, you know, like that maniac energy and be never satisfied and trying to do better, that anxiety is good for you. Hence my analogy, being a compass. Yes. But at the same time, that's not good for you. Yeah. Right. And my whole dilemma is that what would I be if I wasn't, because of my anxiety? If I remove the anxiety, what would be left? Right. You know?
That's so interesting. Like, look, we're scary alike.
Yeah.
We are scary alike. I tell you why, because like I'm also like very anxious as a person.
Yeah.
And I do have exactly what you just say. I do have a tattoo on my arm right here, and it's in Latin. Is in Latin, but I tell you the translation in English is like, what nourished me also destroyed me. Here we go. Yeah. And I had this tattoo because of my anorexia when I was 15, but honestly, because of the anxiety and like, you know, paranoia and weakness that I have. This is a very legitimate question that you're asking yourself. what would I be if I removed that from my life?
Absolutely.
Because anxiety and what nourished me destroy me, but at the same time it's what made me right. So
Absolutely.
I also like start going to the therapy. I think like I started in 2018 going to therapy. I was encouraged by my wife. I never wanted to go to therapy for the very reason that I never wanted to mess anything inside me, because my fear was I'm going to go to the therapy, I'm going to solve some of the knots, and I'm not going to be able to write anymore. And I'm not talking about writing and advertising. I'm talking about writing because I write every single day. It's like, in fact, I can't write when I'm happy, when I'm content, when I'm satisfied. There is no writing happening in me.
Absolutely.
So anyway, that's a great question, man. Great
It's what
question.
Hemingway said, like, writing's about sitting down and let it bleed. I don't know. He said something like that. And it's so interesting. My brother, he's a enologist. He works with wine. And he was telling me the other day that the
Wine.
best grapes are the ones that comes from the hardest soil.
Yes.
So like the more poor and fucked up the soil is going to produce the best grapes, which is counterproductive. You would imagine that a more nourished it would produce a better grape, but it's not, right? So I think it's a very interesting analogy. And again, this is a thing that I do therapy for 17 years already. And this is something that I always thought is the same person, like this Regina, God bless her, in Brazil. And this is the thing that I talk to her a lot. It wasn't that persona with anxiety and all the melancholy and all that stuff, would I be the creative that I am today? If I remove that of the equation, what would be left? So
that's interesting.
It's an interesting dilemma, right?
Yeah. See, I actually, when it comes to therapy, I actually now I'm in the process, because my therapist, which was a behavioral therapist, unfortunately told me that I can only get you, like, you need like a Jungian or Jungian therapist.
That's mine.
And that's why I'm actually in the process to get one, because it wasn't enough. So I'm very messed up. So okay, so look, just Ruminaf Island, also known as Hub Island, is the smallest island on Earth and is located in the Thousands Islands chain in New York. It's actually only 3,300 square feet. There is only enough room for a single house. Let's say you fly there for a weekend, but on your own. You are given a paper and a pencil to start an agency. As I was writing down this question, I was like, oh man, it's like he already started an agency. It was So what would be the first thing that you do? Probably you just write TBD, right?
but that's why I love so much this question, because I went through this exactly what you asking for. So when you decide to start an agency, and again, I think starting TBD is the best thing that I've ever done in my career, because I think it grounded me as a creative. It gave me a lot of empathy for clients and talent.
Because you were coming from Pereira, right?
No, I was at 180 LA.
And 180 LA, sorry. You were at 180 LA, and then you actually like you went to San Francisco and you start TBD. I remember the LinkedIn post, and I remember I thought it was really smart, because
it is, because I went through this process, exactly your question, months. So imagine like brainstorm. I literally had in a room, I printed out the philosophy and approach all agencies. Talk about the ZAG, BBH, the Disruption, TBW, all these agencies, all these different names and philosophies and everything. And I said, there's a lot of arrogance in our industry, like that we know everything. I always feel that, especially when we meet a new client or in a pitch situation. So like agencies come in and they automatically think that the client don't know what they're doing. So the clients, they live and breathe that brand.
Yeah, of course.
For years. And because you're there, you read a couple of documents, you know, like there is this, and I like to come from a very empathetic, I'm a very empathetic person. And I really do believe that when you put the client's business at the core of what you do, you're going to have not just a good client, you're going to have a friend. I have so many friends that are former clients, right? So, and I went through that exercise, and I had this epiphany that, come on, like you see all this changing in our landscape. You can AI, you do this, you do that, and you how dare you know? You think you know everything. So the name that the philosophy is like to be determined, because that's what it is.
I love it, man. I love it.
We don't know what's gonna be. Right?
It's funny you say this attitude of agency, going to client and pretending that they know because they just read a couple of documents. You know, it reminds me like there's a scene in Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams is talking to Matt Damon. I don't remember that movie. It's an old movie.
Absolutely, right? I love that movie.
Matt Damon is a genius. And they are like, actually, he's a therapist, right? So they are doing a session, and Matt Damon stands up and is like looking at the painting that was on a wall, and he start like pretty much like riffing on the painting, like, you know, on the brush stroke and blah, blah, blah. And during another scene, Rob Williams says, like, you're just a cocky kid. Like, you know, you think that you know anything about me just because you saw a painting hanging on the wall. That give you the right to rip my fucking life apart. And it's true, right? Like, that's why you made me think. That's what you do. Agency that comes in, we know what we do. Like, you just read a couple of fucking documents,
and absolutely, and I just have that humility to acknowledge.
Yes.
And you know, sometimes I tell clients we don't know. We will. That's why I feel. I used to have this every time when I'm presenting a pitch or finishing it, and I always tell. Sometimes agents and consultants, they don't like that. I said, look, guys, I think pitch is a artificial situation because it's you have to work in a vacuum. You don't get the knowledge that the client has, because they always want to be, you know, like they want to be fair with all agencies. And I don't think this is where the best work happens. You know, happens when you have that amalgamation with the clients, and you create together. So like, and I think our industry there's a lot of That's a lot of like, what's the word in English? I'm escaping now. A lot of pundits, you know, like people are so sure about so many things. And then another epiphany that I had in my life is that the good thing about this business is that nobody knows anything. Everybody is trying to figure out, because it's so subjective what we do. You know, like there's so many ways to answer, like to come up with an idea and to address a problem, right? So I think having a little. I think that the whole thing about to be determined that comes from like a very empathetic and have a lot of humility for what we do, you know.
That's a great thing, man.
Yeah.
Last question, and like, if there was a wind that blow your sail, you had to give it a name, what would the name be?
Oh my God, that's, I know, like 3 names, all starting with L. Lauren, Luke, and Leo. My wife, 2 boys.
2 boys.
That was, I like to say, when I had my kids, the oldest is 5-year-old and the youngest 3.5. And I wrote, I'm not a writer, but I wrote this little poem when I was at the maternity with my little kid, when my first one was born.
The first one.
Yeah, because it was all about a love that I've never experienced in my life before.
Oh my, yeah.
Every love that I experienced in my life was through my perspective. Was me and my wife, me and my parents, me and my friends. That love, there's no me, only them.
Yeah, it's actually friend-tending. I remember when my it's friend-tending when my first daughter was born in New York City. She was taken like for like, I think as soon as she was born, she was taken somewhere else, like for like, you know, a few hours just to get like check up and everything. I remember that time, that day, I remember that I felt something. I worry for someone in the way I never worry for anybody else. You know what I mean? Just like, it's very hard to explain. It's very hard to explain. In fact, to me, I always say to people that are having children, I always say to my friends, remember the night before. Remember, like, if you can, like, you know, if they tell you,
you'll never be the same again.
Yeah, because you will never be the same. Remember the last night you slept as either like husband and wife, but it will never be the same.
It's a lot that there's
and I
no
do
rule.
remember the night before, actually. We were lucky enough that we were told before, so we went to the, like, you know, it's the night before. I remember perfectly. It was the last night I slept I would say worry less, like, because honestly,
Yeah,
it's literally like, a
absolutely.
different universe. Look, man, thank you so much. This was so refreshing, and like, you're such a great like guy, like, honestly, and I wish
All
you all
right,
the
thank you so
best.
much. Thanks so much. A big fan of the podcast. I've watched a lot, and it's another. That's what I'm grateful for. Like
Awesome, man.
getting to talk and know people like you.
Thank you. Bye bye, man. Bye.